This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all. Welcome back to Rostra. We're here on this episode with Isaac Summers. Isaac is a sophomore in our second year Latin class, and I've got to say, I'm excited about this topic that you've got. We've actually had some conversation about that at our school before. We had a guest speaker from Wabash College who spoke on some of this last year. So I'm kind of curious to see where you take this, Isaac. So tell us, first of all, what is your topic?
My topic is Roman medical practices.
Roman medical. Okay, so first of all, and I think everybody is interested, why does somebody pick this? I mean, it's a professor who does a piece of research or a novelist who chooses to write on topic. We're always interested, why do people pick the topics they do? So what made you pick Roman medical practices?
I've been really keen and very interested in all sorts of medical fields. I'm actually pretty interested in becoming a doctor myself.
Oh, is that right? Now, do you have anybody in your family that's in the medical profession?
Most recently, or closest family would probably be my grandma, who was a nurse.
Okay. And so you kind of thinking maybe in that direction yourself.
Yeah.
So, I think it blows people's minds when they really first discover that ancient people, not just Romans, although we'll be talking about Romans in this episode, but ancient people had ways of handling, everything from aches and pains to fairly significant illnesses or wounds and so forth. Obviously not the way we handle most of that stuff today. What did you find out about Roman medical practices that really struck you as is interesting or different from maybe what you had expected?
What really struck me was the different procedures they would take and all the different types of remedies they would have and surgeries even for people before Christ was born. And it's just amazing to see how advanced some of them were.
Well, I definitely want to get into the surgery thing because I think already some people who would be listening to this are going, wait, they did surgeries? They'd really be surprised at that. But just talk to us a little bit about the other medical treatments. So, for example, what kinds of things, keeping surgery out of it for the moment, what other kinds of things did they actually try to treat?
Let's see. They would they had all sorts of natural remedies, some that even people at your own household back then could even do. And like I have a list right here if I can. Probably the one that I found most interesting is that people used fennel, or they believed that fennel back then could calm the nerves and be a standard treatment for nervous disorders.
Which again, I think that might surprise some people. We're used to dealing with some of the unseen medical issues, like a nervous disorder, right? Obviously, hey, I got wounded by an arrow and I'm bleeding out my leg. That one's pretty obvious. But the internal things, the fact that they addressed it that way, that is fascinating, at least it is to me. So did just anybody, and I really am asking this, I've got some knowledge on this, but I'm really curious myself, did just anybody apply these kinds of remedies, or were there more specialized sorts of people, obviously doctors today, right, nurses, medical practitioners, and so forth. Did they have something more specialized like that you found?
I don't really think they did. I do know that they did have facilities that what we would call hospitals today.
Okay.
But there wasn't really I don't think there was really a standard for who could actually give out these remedies, because some of these are things that you could actually come upon just walking around.
Just pretty natural. Now, I know they did have people that, let's be honest, this guy over here can swing a hammer a little bit better than the next person. He's going to be a blacksmith, right? And so, so people who had some experience, and especially I know in the Roman army, these are people with experience, but to the standard, like for us, you've got to be licensed.
Yeah.
to be a doctor, and I think that's right. They certainly would not have had that. And again, I'm really holding off on the surgery thing because I want to get back to that. As you and I were talking a little bit earlier today before this episode, I saw some of the stuff that you had researched, and what's the role of the gods in some of this?
What I think they would do is probably pray to the gods, specifically more the gods that could, that could actually do some, like the gods who helped with health and healing and all that. But probably could have done a little bit more research on that. I probably barely touched the surface.
Well, and I did think I saw maybe a name or two in there. So what kind of, talk to us about those names that you came across.
So I found out that many doctors were called
Asclepiades?
Yeah, Asclepiades or Hippocrates.
Mm-hmm.
And those were two names of two very well-known, I'm pretty sure they were both physicians back then, probably like maybe like 100-year birth difference. Hippocrates was a Greek physician, while I'm sure that Asclepiades was a Roman physician, and both of them were very influential in the progress of medical research.
I don't know if you ran across this or not, but modern doctors still take an oath called the Hippocratic Oath, which goes back to Hippocrates and the idea that the first order of business for a doctor is you don't do harm, right? You really try not to bring harm to your patient. So, okay, we've got every kind of medicine known to man these days. I mean, right? I go to a local drugstore. Yeah. I see row after row. So you mentioned some of the stuff that was natural things. So are we primarily talking about? What are we talking about? I mean, like, fruits and berries and this kind of stuff? Is that what we're talking about?
Most of their natural remedies that I listed were natural, like you'd like a plant or an egg, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of it came from plants or animals themselves. There wasn't really any like solution or formula they made. I mean, I think I do remember reading about this probably some time ago, and some people actually believe that like metals like mercury could help with like mental illness, but then it just caused it even further.
And you got to imagine there's a lot of trial and error, and unfortunately there's going to be some instances where somebody tried something, it didn't work, perhaps even resulted in death. Bad as that is, they've now learned something, though. Hey, we're not going to try this one again. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. So go back to the surgery thing that you brought up. I just think a lot of people would be stunned to learn that, and you're talking, again, 2,000 plus years ago now, that people were actually performing surgeries. So what kinds of surgeries, what are we talking about?
Now, for starters, They rarely did surgeries because oftentimes the results were very fatal to the recipient of that surgery. But there are basically two main kinds. There is your regular surgery that we would think of today as in like an operating room, and then you got the cesarean section.
Okay.
So for one of the first like advanced surgeries and like quotation marks is the cataract surgery. So what I believe they did is I think they just took a really thin and very sharp knife and just, like what we would do with a laser, just cut off the very top layer and try not to do much damage.
Okay, you're freaking me out. I'm so glad that this is not on video and this is an audio-only podcast, because that's actually starting to give me the willies here. Because you think about this, you and I, we go in for a surgery. And it is ultra clean. Obviously, we know about germ theory, right? Which they didn't have that concept. Yeah. So it's ultra clean, and then we've also got lots of great anesthetic, right? We've got painkillers. You don't even go in and get your tonsils out and not have some sort of anesthesia there. So, wow, I would imagine that some of the surgeries really could have been triggered such a reaction to people that it might have actually caused people to die. So you mentioned cataract surgery. Any other, and you mentioned the cesarean, obviously to aid in childbirth. Any other particular surgeries you ran across?
What I would call, it's a type of brain surgery, but I actually found the real name. It's called trepanation.
Yes, I wondered if you got that.
And it's when probably they just got a hammer and a chisel and just finally drilled a hole in a person's skull, just attempting to relieve the pressure and possibly cure a headache, which they believed.
Which is unbelievable. And we know that they did this. We know that this worked because we have skulls of people with multiple holes that have been drilled. So we know particular individuals who may have had this procedure more than once, obviously lived to tell about it and had it again. So I do think one of the things that is so neat about your topic, it really brings out for people, is we're not just talking a bunch of cavemen, right? This is not that. 2,000 years ago, sure, ancient, didn't have what we have, but they were still doing quite a bit of what we would consider modern or civilized sorts of medical practices there.
Definitely.
So obviously it's a topic that you could just spend forever on. I mean, a person could do a dissertation for their doctorate degree on something like this. Any other really key, interesting pieces that you want to be sure to get out there to people?
We should probably still cover the C-section and then probably what their daily kit looked like.
I want to hear about both. So let's go into the C-section a little bit more.
Okay, for C-section, it came from the word, I do not want to mispronounce that. Is that?
Yeah, right. Kaidara? Yeah.
Kaidara, got it. And then that in Latin means to cut. And a C-section originally had nothing to do with saving a child's life. It was actually a law called the Lex Caesura, which was you could not bury a pregnant woman. Which is odd enough as it sounds, kind of makes sense because
I did not know about that particular law. Okay.
It kind of makes sense because you'd want to have respect for both beings and not just together. But eventually it kind of evolved, or not really evolved, but kind of evolved into a procedure where if the mother was going for sure about to die or she's already dead, it was a procedure where they could save the child's life.
Got it. Okay, so used in that circumstance. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating there. Okay. Talk about daily the medical kit, and again, you and I go into our local family doctor even, or you certainly go into any modern hospital, and let's be honest, there's tools. There's gizmos and machines and everything, and 99% of it I don't understand what it is. What kinds of things did these ancient physicians have?
So what?
Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GarinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.